Hello everyone. This is a Intro to C series. Um, this is my take on it. I expect to mess up things in presentation. I expect to stutter. I expect to have plenty of problems with presentation. But I expect the information I give you here to be accurate. I expect to give you some interesting takes that you might not find elsewhere. Um, and I expect to show you how you can become a better programmer, in my opinion. Very quickly, why would you learn C or C++? We're going to focus on C here, but I also think C++ is probably worth learning a little bit, like a subset of it. It's very similar. Um, Sorry. The reason you want to learn low-level languages as opposed to higher-level ones like Java or JavaScript is because there are implementation details that are hidden from you, and you will probably never interact with these implementation details unless you really you know, really look into it. For one of the big things is memory management. You may have heard of something called the garbage collector, where it kind of does your memory management for you. And you know what? That's fine. I'm not going to take a really opinionated stance. I'm just going to show what cool things you can do with low-level languages, and you can probably do with other higher-level languages, but um, probably not as native, because a lot of our tools and stuff like that is built in C, so it's already native there for you if you want to use libraries or if you want to create everything from scratch yourself using like the Windows API or whatnot. There's tons of things that are already there for you natively in C, and so it'll work out the best it possibly can. First thing I'll show you is basically a project that I don't know, probably worked on it for 7 months about 2 years ago. It's an abandoned project now, but I just want to start off with the hard hitters. Um, and there's cool things you can do with it, but that's not the point. The point is kind of just to show you what's possible, right? And then this other one's going to take a second to load. This one's a little bit more advanced. It's a little bit newer, about a year old. This one's also pretty cool, in my opinion. Um, the other one I self-coded my entire self. This one's working with a little bit of a team, and so there's other things you can do here and stuff like that, and lighting. There's lighting in the other one too. I just don't have any point lights because I was doing demo stuff. And then colored lighting and whatnot. It's pretty cool. There's cool stuff. You can do wireframes. The other one can do wireframes too. I just forgot to show that. And we'll escape out of that. Now I showed you those visually impressive projects. I'll show you one that's maybe not as visually impressive, but it's still like, it's still cool. These projects are still super cool, and I'll show you how to do these types of projects towards the end of this series. That's the plan. The other projects, they take a little bit more time, and I probably will make a series for that too. It's OpenGL if anyone was interested. And so these types of projects are also really cool, and you can do these, and these aren't that difficult. You can even make Pong. There's a lot of building blocks here, and from 2D you can make 3D stuff. Right? It's not perfect, but it gets the job done. The AI can never lose. So now that we started with that, how about or now that I showed you that, how about we get started with actual C stuff? How do you even start? Where do you start? Well, where I started is I probably just said um, uh, Visual Studio Code C compiler. That's probably what I said, something like that. And then I saw this. I was like, okay, let's look through this. All right, there's an extension here. I have that extension already, but if you don't, you just type in C++ and you would, just enable that or install. I'm going to show both compilers for Windows. By the way, this is a Windows tutorial. if that wasn't apparent initially. So there's the min-GW, which is like GCC, and there's MSVC. But we'll do both. Um, if you're installing this toolchain, you just go through all these things. And let's see, I haven't done this in a minute. You go here, and you'll probably install this. I don't know if I want to do this all. I don't really want to do this. But like you'll just click through all that. It'll show you the installation folder, and then you'll have something here, right here, and it should be probably in here. But then yeah, and you'll see all these things in here. You'll see the C++ exe. Sorry, that's not correct. You'll see like CC. You'll see GC, G++. You'll see GCC. These are the executables that you want. And you also will probably want to take this bin and then go to edit system variables. And the reason you do this is because it's not going to be in path. When you say GCC, it won't say this. It'll say something like, this term is not supported, doesn't exist in the CMLit or CMDLit. Like it'll say something like that. So what you want to do is you want to go to path, edit, and then you want to add it somewhere here. Oh, I have mine's in here, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that's, or maybe it is, I don't know. It doesn't matter, or it shouldn't. And then by the way, you're probably going to have to make sure you do this part. So go to the terminal environment, probably this one. That looks right. And then you're just going to follow what this says, do all this, and this will give you like GDB for debugging and stuff like that. And you'll want to do that. The path already might get set up for you, but I don't know. I don't remember. So that's that. So that's GCC. GCC will then show up. All these ones will show up, and it'll say like fatal error, no input files, and that's fine. That's exactly what we want. How about the CL version, or the MSVC? Well, you're just going to very simply install Visual Studio. Not Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio. And then you're going to click Download Visual Studio. You'll get something like the Visual Studio installer. You're going to download that guy. Something like this will pop up. And you're just going to check development with C++. And then obviously you can do anything else in here that you want. Like I developed stuff with Unity before. I did develop stuff with Unreal, and you'll want to check these if that's the case. And then once you do that, you don't actually want to use it. That's the weird part. You don't want to use it. What you want to do is you want to be able to access the CL compiler from here. Now, there's a little bit of a trick to this. It's kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a lesser known thing, but there is something, there's a little bit of a trick. So you go here. Let's see if I even remember how to do this. I have a script for this. Yeah, so you want to go to Program Files and Microsoft Visual Studio 2022 Community no, it's VC Auxiliary Build. Yeah, okay, so this is what we want. We want these guys. Let's see if I can. So we want that. Let's see if this will work. Like I said, I have a script for this. I don't normally do this anymore. Something like this, maybe. Oh, okay, cool. And then you want to specify the architecture that you want. So x64. And so now Uh-oh. Um, oh, yes, that's true. The reason I have a script for this is because it doesn't work in PowerShell. You have to expose those variables. That's a complicated idea. What, basically, you need to be in CMD for this to work for you. And there's reasons for that because this sets local variables. It's a little bit complicated. Don't worry about it. It's not an issue. And then x64. Yep, and so now I should have CL, and I do. So I have this, I have dev-env, which will bring up this, and it'll help me debug my programs. We'll talk about that way later on. So now that we have this set up, get some type of text editor. I use Visual Studio Code. Sorry, Visual Studio. Yeah, Visual Studio Code, sorry, mainly. You can download that. And you know what? Let's just get straight into it. Oh, sorry. I'm used to doing all these things. YouTube series. Where did that go? All right. So let's just start off with the basic ideas. Create a file. You can name it whatever you want. And typically, like main.c is appropriate. Let's start with something really simple. What does it mean for your program to be able to compile, right? Like if I just do some random stuff here and I take the compiler that we were using, main.c, output, um, YouTube program. By the way, the way this works, and if you didn't know how this works, you might not, just look at to show like GCC how to use the compiler or something like that, and you'll find tons of ways or tons of yeah. See, this is not bad. This will kind of explain to you how to use it a little bit. But basically, how I do it is I just do the compiler, which is the binary, the file that you want based off of the relative path, and then the output of what you want to name the program when it gets compiled. So this is not going to work because this is a compiler, right? But what does that mean? Well, at a very formal level, there are things that are like syntactically correct in a language, and if your input doesn't follow the syntax of a language, then it's not in that language. Like it doesn't exist syntactically in that language. Uh, and so this is kind of what that means. It just means that I don't understand this. I don't know what this means. So how about we do something that looks a little bit more like code, like a equals 5, right? This is typically what you'll look at to like assign variables. That this is the type, this is the variable name. This could be anything, could be apple. Equals is the assignment, and then the variable or like the value you want to assign, and then a semicolon always basically ends the statement. Well, this will still not work, probably because I didn't save it. This will still not work, but it didn't immediately error the same type of way. It errored in a little bit of a different way. Where it says undefined reference to win main, this is actually something we'll talk about later. But for right now, how about we just get it to compile? So we're going to want a main function, which is what you'll need for any program you make. That's not like a static library or whatever. And let's just start off really simple. We'll start here. You'll notice I didn't get any errors. That seemed to compile correctly. And then you'll see this one right here. It's an executable that you produced. That's your first program. Now to run this executable, you'll probably do something like this. It's a little bit different on different architectures. Actually, just different OSs. Architecture shouldn't matter. Uh, you'll notice that it did nothing. On Linux, there's like this command or something that you can see like what the last executable or what the last program returned, but we don't care about that. Uh, so how about we actually do something? I'm gonna gloss over this for right now, but for right now, just include standard io.h. Basically includes are a way of pulling in other people's code um, so that you can use functionality from there. Specifically, what we want from standard io.h is something called printf, and it works very similarly to other prints in other languages like Python and all that stuff. And it just means like, I think it means print format. I actually don't know. I think it means print format. And let's just print this very simple hello world. And this will be your first hello world program. So let's compile. Let's run the program. And we got hello world. That's pretty awesome. Um, so now from there, what can we do, right? Well, let's dive into, I'm actually gonna look at my notes here. I'm sorry. I need to, I need to know what I even planned. Um, yep, so VC vars, CL compiler, the difference in these, I mean, I sort of talked about that. Oh yeah, if you want to know anything, I'm okay with you using LLMs. Generally, I don't really like language models because I think they kind of take away the joy of learning something. Um, but I'm okay with you using them if you use them like a tool. Just ask for information so that you don't have to like look on Google and like docs and stuff like that. I'm okay with that. We did our first Hello World program. Let's talk about types in C. And this might be a little bit confusing if you've never programmed before, but basically in C and other programming languages, there are likely going to be types, unless you're talking about like some type of interpreted language like Python. But even then, Python's starting to go towards the type route, I think, because static analysis is awesome. But like I said before, this is a type, this is a variable, and this is a value, and we're assigning that value to this variable. So what does that mean? Well, now we have this variable that just has this value in there, and on its own, it doesn't feel very useful in any regard. But one thing you'll start to realize once you make a little bit more complex programs is that you can't hold all these like numbers in your head and this information in your head. You want to alleviate some of the work that you have to do, and to do that, you want to name things well and to name them how you're interpreting that data. For example, it might be the case that I I want to keep track of someone's age, right? And it also might be the case that I want to get someone's age from like the person using the program. And so actually we're gonna do this. By the way, negative is it works because there's an int here. But if this was different, if this was like unsigned, this would not be good. We'll talk about that later though. So the next thing I want to use from this standard io.h, I want to use scanf. Now scanf is really interesting. First off, I'm going to explain what this is with printf, which is what we were using before, because I think it's a little bit more intuitive. So before I just said hello world in here, right? Now, how about um, I want to like actually put a variable in here, right? I want to actually like I want to use this and put it in here. I want to use this value and put it in there, right? And the way we would do that is we use the printf just like the same, but then we use a little bit of a format specifier. And you can look these up. I think they're called format specifiers. Printf format specifiers. Jesus Christ, what the hell is this? There's got to be a... Okay, yeah, so this is pretty good. %d, which is what I'm using for like signed integer types. %float, we haven't talked about this, but we will. Video's getting a little bit long, and so I will wrap it up very shortly, but next video we'll probably talk about floats, we'll probably talk about more things you can do, more complex behavior, loops, arrays, maybe we'll get into functions, stuff like that. So stick around. But yeah, so you can look up this, you can look up like kind of what it does. And so for our purposes, we want to print out a integer. And int is short for integer. And so here, I would expect this to say hello world -1. Let's see if it does that. So let's recompile. Let's run the program. Hello world -1. Cool. That's pretty cool. But now let's say I want to create a program where I actually let the user tell me what age I am, right? I am this years old. Okay? But so how do we do that? Might be a little bit daunting at first, but let's introduce a new idea. Basically, I don't know how deep I want to get into this, but basically every program that you run has access to a standard in and standard out. And basically that's just kind of, that's just, how do you explain that? Okay, I'm gonna gloss over that right now. We'll talk about it in a little bit future videos because you have to have like the mechanisms to understand these ideas, otherwise they just don't make sense. But yeah, so scanf, let's just say that it takes terminal input. You can input something in your terminal and it'll read that. So the way we want to do that is we want to, oh man, I did not think this through because this is taking the pointer or the reference of something, which we haven't talked about. But just bear with me. I'm sorry. Um, Basically, this age is going to get updated by this function, and we haven't talked about functions. Wow, I'm doing a terrible job, gentlemen and ladies, whoever's watching. Um, but yeah, so let's just see what happens, right? We expect this to basically prompt us, and to make that a little bit more obvious, let's just say enter your age, something like this. Here, let's do this. The reason I'm doing the \n is that means a new line. You don't automatically get a new line in this language unless you specify it. And that's a little bit weird, but it makes sense. It's actually pretty useful. And so I actually haven't used scanf in a really long time. I don't know if it's supposed to be like that or this. Well, let's see. Okay, enter our age. Let's say I am 42. Hey, that worked pretty well. I'm 42 years old. I'm not, but that's what the program says. So yeah, I mean, that's really like basic ideas. We're going to get into a lot more complex ideas, but we just need this basic machinery. Next time we're going to talk about functions, which is like what these are. It's pretty hard to actually like teach something from like the ground up. because like you need a lot of machinery to talk about different aspects of things. Like I would like to talk about like what it means for this variable to be in memory, what the stack is, and all these like these key things. But we got to build up a little bit of a repertoire, like a little bit of a tool belt or toolkit to navigate through all these things. But I think that's good for now. I'll try to do better in the next video. uh, like I said, there's gonna be plenty of presentation mistakes, and that's okay because when you program, don't let people think that they're not making mistakes. Everyone's making mistakes. Even if you know a system in and out, like I do with like the personal library that I'm making, you'll still make mistakes. It's literally inevitable. And mistakes are good. Mistakes are how you learn. Um, and so yeah, I encourage you to make mistakes. I encourage you to explore uh, and do cool things. What I'll leave off with, what I'll leave you guys off with, is I will say, I want you to take a char, which is a character, stands for a character, and I want you to read from the standard input, which is what this is. I want you to read a char variable. I want you to put it, assign it to this using the same type of method that we did here. And then I want you to print out the char that you did. And in the next video, I'll show how to do that quickly, but that's your little exercise to end this video off. Thank you guys for watching. Um, happy coding.